about the book called Shattering the Myths of Darwinism, a audio podcast by Mohammed Raj Abdullah.
Right. Our mission today is actually much more subtle and, I think, more fascinating. We're not analyzing the science of evolution.
No, we're analyzing the reaction to a challenge.
And the sources for that reaction are from places like the Sunday Times, the Times, the Daily Telegraph. I mean, these are the heavy hitters.
These are the gatekeepers of serious journalism. And what's so fascinating is that when they got a book that says Darwin was wrong, a book challenging the absolute bedrock of modern biology, they didn't just laugh, they didn't dismiss it.
And that's the hook, right? You expect the scientific establishment to defend its territory. You expect the fringe to attack it. But here, you have the mainstream media acting as this sort of referee.
And in these reviews, they are making some incredibly bold claims, not just about the book, but about the state of modern science.
That they aren't just reviewing a book. They're reviewing the culture of science itself. It creates this incredible press versus the consensus narrative. So let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Okay, so the document opens with a quote from Neville Hodgkinson in the Sunday Times. And he comes out swinging immediately. He writes, quote, "The world of science faces the biggest challenge yet to one of its most basic beliefs."
Okay, let's just pause on that phrase for a second. The biggest challenge yet. That feels a little hyperbolic, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, evolution has been challenged since 1859. People have been shouting at Darwin for over a century.
Exactly. So why does Hodgkinson call this the biggest challenge?
I think the key is in what he says next.
Yeah, the context he builds. He isn't talking about the volume of the noise. He's talking about the quality of the argument. He calls the book an authoritative compilation of scientific findings.
That word findings, that really sticks out.
It should. In journalism, words matter. He didn't say arguments. He didn't say theories or speculations.
He had findings.
Which implies hard data. Data you can measure, observe, replicate.
So right out of the gate,
Hmm.
the Sunday Times is validating the book's premise. They're telling the reader, look, this isn't a theological argument. This is a data argument.
Precisely. And that frames the entire conversation. And then look at the other part of that sentence. He calls evolution one of science's most basic beliefs.
Beliefs, not laws, not facts.
Right. And that is a very specific linguistic choice. In the philosophy of science, there's a huge difference between a theory, which is a framework to explain facts, and a belief, which implies, an emotional or dogmatic attachment.
By using the word belief, he's subtly shifting the ground. He's suggesting the defense of Darwinism might be more emotional than rational.
It sets up this tension immediately. Science is supposed to be objective, cold, calculating, but the reviewer is hinting that it's actually a system of belief, almost like a secular faith.
And that theme isn't just a throwaway line. It gets picked up and amplified in the next source.
Yeah, the leader column from the Times.
This one is probably the most provocative comparison in the whole stack. I mean, it's a real heavy hitter. They write, Richard Milton's book could shake the religion of evolution as much as Honest to God shook popular Christianity 30 years ago.
Okay, we really need to unpack this. Because that reference, honest to God, that might fly over the heads of most people who weren't, following Anglican theology scandals in the 1960s.
Which, to be fair, is most of us. So what was Honest to God?
So, Honest to God was this book from 1963 by John Robinson, the Bishop of Woolwich. It was a massive cultural moment in the UK.
Okay.
He basically questioned the whole traditional, literal idea of God as an old man in the sky. He wanted to modernize the church's thinking.
But the key part here is who wrote it. It wasn't an atheist attacking the church from the outside.
Precisely. It was a bishop. It was an attack from inside the hierarchy. It was the establishment questioning itself. And it caused an absolute firestorm because it showed a crack in the foundation of the institution.
So when the Times compares this science book to Honest to God, they're making a really sophisticated point. They aren't just saying it's controversial.
No, they are implying that Darwinism has become a church. Look at the text again. They put the word religion in quotation marks, the religion of evolution. They are explicitly drawing a parallel between scientific consensus and religious dogma.
The implication being that scientists are the priesthood, textbooks are the scripture, and this book is the Reformation. That is just a wild stance for a newspaper of record like the Times to take. You'd expect them to be the voice of the establishment defending the consensus.
I think journalists just love a good story. And the story of the emperor has no clothes is always compelling. But I think it also speaks to a sort of Fatigue with arrogance. If a scientific community presents itself as infallible, the press eventually starts looking for the cracks.
Right. But here's the problem I always have with this kind of narrative. As soon as you use words like religion and belief to talk about evolution, you usually open the door for creationism.
It's the standard playbook.
The evolution is just a religion, so my religion is just as valid.
That's the counter-argument, and usually it shuts down the debate because the media doesn't want to touch religious arguments with a 10-foot pole.
So is that what's happening here? Are these reviewers just providing cover for a theological argument?
That is the pivotal question, and the source material actually anticipates it. We have a review here from John Michell in The Oldie, and he tackles that creationist label head on.
Right, I have that one here. He writes, if a religious creationist had written it, no one would have paid attention.
Which is a moment of brutal honesty from the press, isn't it? He's admitting their own bias. They have a filter. If you come with a Bible in your hand, they tune you out.
But then he pivots. He says, but Milton, the author, is a professional science writer. And then he adds that he is well informed on what is going on in the departments of geology and old bones.
Old bones. I just love that phrasing. It's so delightfully British.
It is charming. But what does he actually mean? The Department of Old Bones.
He's talking about paleontology and stratigraphy.
Okay, let's break those down. Paleontology, I get dinosaurs, fossils. Stratigraphy.
Stratigraphy is the study of rock layers, the strata. It's how we date things. If you find a fossil in a certain layer, you know how old it is based on the rock. It's the hard evidence of evolution, the fossil record.
So when the reviewer says the author knows about geology and old bones, he's saying the author speaks the technical language of the experts.
Exactly. He isn't arguing from scripture. He's arguing from the strata. He's looking at the same rocks and the same bones as the scientists, but he's drawing different conclusions. And that gives him a very specific kind of credibility.
It's that insider-outsider dynamic. He's an outsider to the academy. He's a writer, not a professor, but he's an insider to the data.
And that is dangerous for the establishment. If a theologian questions carbon dating, a physicist can just dismiss them as illiterate on the subject. But if a science writer who understands the methodology questions it, that's much harder to brush off.
So because he can't be dismissed as just a religious zealot, the media has to take him seriously.
They have to listen to him, yeah.
And that brings us to the critique of the scientific community itself. We've established the challenge is big, the critic is credible. Now let's look at the target.
The institution itself.
There's a quote here from Matthew Cockrell in the Daily Telegraph that just paints a very bleak picture. He describes Darwinism as a crumbling edifice.
Stop and visualize that for a second. A crumbling edifice. An edifice is something built to be permanent. A cathedral. A fortress.
Something that projects power.
Exactly.
Right.
But it's crumbling. The structural integrity is gone. It's dangerous. It looks strong from a distance, but the beams are rotting.
But then he goes on to say, what is keeping it standing? He says it is supported only by a conservative scientific establishment.
Now, that word conservative really stopped me in my tracks.
Me too. Because usually in the culture wars, science is seen as the progressive force.
Yeah.
Right? Science is the future. Tradition is the past. But here, the reviewer is flipping the script completely.
It is a total reversal. He is calling the scientists conservative.
What does he even mean by that in this context? He's obviously not talking about, like, voting patterns.
No, he means reactionary. He means an establishment that's more interested in preserving the status quo than in following the evidence. You know the concept of a paradigm shift from the philosopher Thomas Kuhn.
Okay, give us the quick version of Kuhn.
So Kuhn argued that science doesn't move in a smooth, straight line. It stays in a normal phase where everyone agrees on the rules, the paradigm.
Right.
And even if weird data pops up, scientists tend to ignore it or explain it away because they want to protect that paradigm. They are conservative about the rules. Until too much weird data piles up and the whole thing collapses. Boom. A revolution.
So Cockrell is suggesting we're in that late stage. The weird data is piling up. The edifice is crumbling. But the conservative scientists are just trying to prop it up with duct tape.
It is exactly the narrative these reviews are constructing. They're painting the scientists not as bold explorers, but as gatekeepers protecting a dying idea.
Which connects perfectly to the next review, this one from the Literary Review. James Rogers writes that Darwinism, quote, should not continue to be taught in schools and universities as though it were holy writ.
Holy writ. There we are again, back to the religious metaphors.
That's
inescapable in this text.
But this time, it's about education. Taught in schools. This hits home for anyone who took high school biology. You get the textbook and it says, this is how it happened. Memorize it for the test.
And that's the difference